Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru, where we pronounce things any way we want to. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing good. I'm on a cruise ship.
That's right. When you guys are listening to this, we are in the middle of the ocean. So hopefully there's no problems with the podcast because we can't fix it.
Ooh, yeah. No pressure, Tim.
Yeah. Don't screw it up, Tim. Before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. Also, we want to apologize for any ambient noise. Our neighbors are trying to race cars or something. I'm not sure what's going on. So if you hear the crazy people being loud outside, there's nothing we can do about it. Sorry. All right, Tim.
Get off my lawn.
What are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we'll be discussing chapters 12 and 13 of the Dragon Reborn, where Verin and Siuan talk strategy and the girls are brought before the Amyrlin Seat to face the consequences of leaving the tower. Chapter 12 is called the Amyrlin Seat, and the icon is the Flame of Tarvalon.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Siuan paces her study impatiently, waiting for Verin. She can't help but glance at the carved box on her table as she paces, containing secret and sensitive documents. The box was warded so it would burst into flames if any hand but hers touched it. She reflects on her journey from a poor fisherman's daughter in Tyr to her current position of power, and frets over how precarious that position is. Verin finally arrives, bursting with news, and Siuan surprises her by telling her that the chamber is warded against eavesdropping, so she can speak freely. Things in the tower have changed. Verin confirms that Rand declared himself as dragon, and they are both relieved to think that Moraine has him nicely in hand. Then Verin produces the Horn of Valere. At first, Siuan is pissed that Verin didn't leave it with Rand, but Verin explains that Mat sounded the horn, and now it won't work for anyone else but him. If they were to let Mat die from the sickness of the Shadow Logoth dagger, then the horn would be in play again. They talk about the Shanchen, the power being used as a weapon, lionfish and silverpike, and of course, their 3 runaways. Exposition and fishing metaphors. That is the Amyrlin Seat.
Jordan starts setting up the tower split by telling us, quote, "The Amyrlin Seat was of all ages and none, no matter from which she was raised." He's stressing this really hard here because for the rest of this book, we'll be shown examples of how the tower does not currently embody that sentiment at all. It's actually a crucial part of what the Amyrlin is, and if you pay attention, there are a lot of hints that the tower is cracking apart at the seams.
I like the description of Siuan's study. It gives us good insight into who she is as a person. Siuan is a poor fisherman's daughter, and no matter how powerful she got, she never strayed too far from those humble beginnings. She grew up a scrappy fighter who had to flee from Tyr in secret because of what they do to people who can channel, and she never allowed power or luxury to let her grow soft. Staying in touch with her roots is how she's able to survive everything she goes through in the series.
Yeah. The fact that the Amyrlin Seat has to ward her own study is another indicator of just how bad things are in the tower.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea that anyone would have the nerve to eavesdrop on the Amyrlin Seat should be unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
What Siuan says about false dragons is really interesting. Like, the pattern demanded that a dragon be reborn, so a bunch of false dragons pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But once the real dragon declares himself, the pattern has no room for the false dragons. As Rand fought in the sky over Falme, the same thing happened for both the false dragon in Hadden Merk and for Mazrim Taim. Quote, "They were in battle and winning when suddenly a great light flashed in the sky and a vision appeared just for an instant. There are a dozen different versions of what it was, but in both cases, the result was exactly the same. The false dragon's horse reared up and threw him. He was knocked unconscious, and his followers cried out that he was dead and fled the field, and he was taken." I think it's really cool how the pattern just dealt with the false dragons.
Yeah. I don't think this series mentioned until this point that the Horn of Valir only works for the first one to blow it and no one else.
Right?
So this is actually a pretty key bit of information here. At this point in the story, the first time through, I thought that Matt was pretty useless. So I definitely thought it was a valid possibility that they could just let Matt die, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, it would have been really interesting, like a really interesting conflict for our characters who are constantly having to deal with Aes Sedai. Like, how are they going to trust them after they just let their childhood friend die, you know?
Right.
Plus, the stone cold way that Verin presents the idea just makes it obvious that letting Matt die would be no big deal to them, you know? Like, unfortunate maybe, but certainly nothing to lose sleep over.
Wow, yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. And tell Verin or no, since Matt's dying anyway, Siuan has to consider if this is just the pattern making way for Rand or someone else to blow the horn.
It's
know?
true.
So, I mean, I thought it was totally plausible that they might just let him die.
Yeah, especially since at this point in the series, I trusted none of the Aes Sedai.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No one, not at all.
Something Jordan excels at is showing how easy it is to make wrong decisions when you don't have all the information. Like, Siuan is wrong about so many things that we, the readers, know, but she doesn't. Mm-hmm. Jordan loves unreliable narrators, and we can't trust his characters. They do the best they can, but they screw up constantly. Like here, Siuan makes the best choice she can, and the way things unfold makes me feel sympathetic to her plight. But it just goes to show you that you should always listen to Verin, even if she doesn't make sense, because she always knows what's up. There is a lot going on in the tower that's pulling Siuan's attention. Silverpike chewing her nets to threads, so on and so forth. Prioritizing things happening in the tower over the possible return of the Seanchan, even though they're people who wield the power as a weapon, is a reasonable decision to make.
Yeah.
There's no proof that the Seanchan weren't gone for good. Too bad it was the wrong choice. And that wraps up Chapter 12. But before we go to Chapter 13, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Swan Sanchi's fishing metaphors for all occasions. A flapping tongue can put you in the net instead of the fish. Trust is as slippery as a basket of eels sometimes. Once you decide to get a fish, there's no use waiting till it rots. When there are fish heads and blood in the water, you don't need to see the silverpike to know they're there. And many, many more. Swan Sanchi's fishing metaphors for all occasions.
I don't understand fishing metaphors!
Fish guts.
Chapter 13 is called Punishments, and the icon is still the Flame of Tar-Valon.
Egwene is stewing in her room in the novice quarters. She can't suffer her fear in silence, so she whispers through a small hole in the wall to her neighbor Elaine. They worry over what's going to happen to them and lament how unfair it all is. Eggs feels they should be lauded as heroes, not punished. Oh, the injustice of it all. They're both still determined to become Aes Sedai, but if it comes down to stilling, Egwene plans to fight and run away, and Elaine agrees. The accepted guarding them come in to escort them to the Amyrlin. When they get to her study, Siuan makes them wait, standing there fidgeting before her as their anxiety grows. When she finally addresses them, Nynaeve immediately tries to explain that they didn't run away when they went with Liandrin. Eggs breaks in to say that Liandrin is Black Aja, and the Amyrlin tells them she already knows. Liandrin left several months ago with 12 others after murdering a bunch of people and raiding the storeroom where the Terangirl are kept and stealing some. Nynaeve demands to know why they're being treated as criminals. They were tricked by the Black Aja. That should clear them of any wrongdoing. Siuan tells them that they're lucky no one knows they left with Liandrin, or they might be stilled for association. Nynaeve starts to rant that it's not fair, but Siuan shuts her up pretty quickly. For punishment, they will all report to Sheriam for a good beating, and then they will be assigned to scrub pots in the kitchen for the rest of their lives, all of which was announced publicly. Siuan lays into them for allowing themselves to fall into such an obvious trap, and vows to teach them to think before they act, or else. Because Egwene and Elaine have grown so much in their abilities, they have surpassed the realm of novices, so they will be allowed to take the accepted test, But before they get too cocky and think of it as a reward, Siuan lets them know that the first few weeks as an accepted are torture, and they will have it harder than most from those who think they are undeserving. She tells Elaine that she missed her mother by about a month. Morghese was so furious that she refused to take Elida back with her as Aes Sedai advisor. Elaine may have single-handedly ended a tradition as old as Andor itself. She wanted to remove Gawain and Galad from their warder training, though they managed to talk her out of it, and she demanded Elaine be sent back to Caemlyn as soon as she was found. Elaine says that she wants to stay and learn, and Siuan tells her that that's a good thing because she has the potential to be stronger than any Aes Sedai in 1,000 years, and Siuan will not let her go until she attains the shawl, even if she has to grind her into sausage to do it. She tells Leanne to take Elaine down to Sheriam's study because she has more words for Eggs and Nynaeve. Egwene wonders what in the world they could be in for next.
Egwene grows a lot over the series. It's kind of hard to imagine the girl we see here in this chapter fretting over her punishment, turning into the woman who later saves the White Tower from its own self-destruction.
Yeah.
She thinks that she has seen something of the world now, but she's still so young and naive.
Yeah.
She has a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And heroes, really? I'm glad Siuan sets them right about just how big of a mistake they made.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever they do, it will be what they decide is good for the White Tower, not what is good or fair to us. You know, for someone who really resents this so much, Egwene becomes the personification of this sentiment as Amyrlin. She is definitely willing to make sacrifices, whether they are personal ones or by sacrificing other people.
Yeah.
It becomes the core of who she is. She is always working for the betterment of the tower, and ensuring the future of the tower becomes her life's mission.
Yeah, that's fair. I love that Leanne sizes up Faelaine in a second and knows exactly what to do with her. She's so petty and vindictive, and she misuses the tiny bit of authority she's been given.
Yeah.
Leanne tells her, to lead is neither to push nor to pull, and sends her to rate garden paths as she contemplates those words. Suck on that. Like, since the girls have to let people think they're runaways for their own safety, it's nice to get this little moment of justice, no matter how small.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the little things.
Yeah.
Jordan does a good job of demonstrating power and intimidation of the Amyrlin Seat without Siuan having to do much. The way she makes the girls wait while she does not even look up from what she's working on, and the way Nynaeve starts to say something but thinks better of it, even Nynaeve knows not to break the silence. But even more so when Egwene thinks that it feels like hours, but she could have waited longer before facing Siuan's stare. These girls are about to get a serious talking to from Mom. I like that Nynaeve is the first to say anything. Egwene assumes she does this because Nynaeve can't control her anger. But it's possible that she does this because she's about to take responsibility. She is the accepted. She is older, and we have already commented on how she sees herself as responsible for Egwene and Elaine. So I like to think that Nynaeve spoke up because being in charge means being the one who takes the responsibility. But don't expect her to go down quietly for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we are seeing everything through Egwene's eyes, so it's not necessarily the truth. And yeah, it could be that Nynaeve spoke up because she's expecting she's hoping that most of the responsibility and most of the backlash is going to fall on her to spare Egwene and Elaine.
Right. So we find out that 13 former Aes Sedai are now suspected members of the Black Aja, and that they ran away with a bunch of Tahan'griel. Also, 3 sisters and a bunch of others were killed when the 13 escaped. We get an explanation that Tahan'griel are different than the other 2 Angreal types because they perform a function using the power, whereas the others help the channeler use more of the power for whatever they want to weave. We're introduced to the Oath Rod here, which is an important little piece of information. So what I'm getting at is that the rules of the world are starting to firm up a bit. They do not know how to use several of the stolen Tahan'griel, which is interesting.
Yeah, like they're not sure what the use is, like what they're used for.
Right.
So they could be nothing or they could be catastrophic.
Which seems weird.
Yeah. So I love any scene that pits Nynaeve and Siuan against each other. Here's what the book says. Quote, "That is not fair," Nynaeve said. Leanne stirred, but Nynaeve went on. "It is not right. The Amyrlin stood up. That was all, but it cut Nynaeve short. Egwene thought she was wise to keep quiet. She had always believed Nynaeve was as strong-willed as anyone could be, until she met the woman wearing the striped stole. Like they're both strong as nails, and when they're at odds, you can almost see sparks coming off of them.
Yeah. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or read.
Just makes me happy.
So the punishment is about keeping up appearances.
Yeah.
The tower can't let it get into other initiates' minds that it's okay to run away. This goes double because Elaine and Egwene will be raised to the accepted.
Yeah.
Additionally, if they don't punish the girls for something, even something they technically did not do, leave without permission, then others will think that they were part of Leandrin's group of black sisters. So it's a really tricky situation.
Yeah. So one thing that I love about the Wheel of Time is that actions have unforeseen consequences that may not show themselves until several books down the line.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't seem like such a big thing yet, but Elaine leaving the tower affects everything.
It really does.
Like, Morghese was furious, so she wouldn't take Elida back. Because she had no Aes Sedai advisor, there's no one there to sense the Forsaken when Raven came a-knockin'.
Right.
Which caused all the crazy stuff to go down with Morghese. And frankly, I don't even want to think about that storyline yet. But essentially, Elaine caused the entire War of Succession.
Right.
Meanwhile, since Elida was in Tar Valon instead of Camelin where she belonged, she was free to lead the coup against Siuan. So in a way, Elaine is also responsible for breaking the White Tower.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, heroes. Totally.
Siuan sends Elaine to get switched by Sheriam and keeps Egwene and Nynaeve to herself. The first time I read this book, I could not put it down because of transitions like this. I had to know what happened next. Good writing does that. It just keeps you wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for chapters 12 and 13 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week for chapters 14 and 15, where the girls discover just how dangerous the tower actually can be.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Like and subscribe to us over there. Make sure you ring that little bell. And thanks, everybody. We hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.